Wow. I am so in awe of that song. So I want to take you back to an inspiring moment. It is a story that is so profound and yet shockingly untold. A story that was one of the most defining moments in American history. We all know Martin Luther King Jr.'s I Have a Dream speech, right? It was one of the most iconic speeches of all time, without a doubt. Powerful, impactful. Honestly, if you really go back and listen, it was poetry. But did you know that the I Have a Dream section was actually improvised? It wasn't even called the I Have a Dream speech until after he delivered it. The original title and the original draft, and there were many, was titled Normalcy Never Again. In fact, the word dream wasn't even used until 12 minutes in, and the entire speech is 17 minutes long. I find that astonishing. It only gained its new title when Dr. King put aside his script and there was a tone shift because he started speaking ad-libbed, fully from his heart, and his heart was felt in the tone of every single word that he spoke. How was he able to pivot on a dime and disregard his prepared words, especially on a day like that, to deliver a message so powerful, so beautiful, that its impact is still active and alive in all of us today, 60 years later? And more importantly, how can you, as a business owner, a leader, or an entrepreneur with a mission and message of your own, capture his power to communicate, to captivate, and bring it into your realm? And what if that power isn't in the words alone? It's time to ditch the pitch. Instead, I want you to own your tone, because in business today, we all obsess over the perfect words, the perfect brand message, the perfect pitch, the perfect why. We prepare endlessly for meetings, and we especially memorize our elevator pitch. We revise it and then we memorize it again, don't we? And that's because we think it's our words that move people the most, that it's our words people even remember. In recent years, we think it's our why, and the principle behind that is true. It is a step forward than just focusing on your product or your service to focusing on your purpose, from what you do to why you do it. But I believe that in today's business world, that's not enough. Because if we're honest, it's become trendy in business to have a why, for a company to have that stated purpose. And we have to turn that trend back into a truth. And when I learned the story behind Dr. King's speech, that the I Have a Dream section was improvised, I was astonished. I was floored. I literally spent the next few days with my face glued to YouTube on my TV, watching it on repeat in absolute amazement and awe. And you will do that later today too. Because it was proof of a truth that I have known for most of my career, why am I shaking? And most of my life, that when your message comes from your heart, when it comes from who you are at your core, there's a tone behind your words that moves people. It's visceral and you can feel it. I want to tell you how I came to know this from my own experiences. I grew up in a household with an extremely volatile and abusive father, in more ways than one. And I had to become hyper aware of his tone and my tone as a young child. Anyone here knows the impact of tone if you've ever been in a relationship, in a home or in a job where you had to walk on eggshells around someone. God, it's the worst feeling in the world. You're afraid to open your mouth to speak up. You're afraid to move, and you wait for them to walk into a room just to get a sense of whether or not you're safe that day. In that kind of environment, you quickly learn to listen just for tone, to survive. Here's what I learned: how to be silent and small, how to not rock the boat or trigger my father's wrath and the pain that it caused so many people beyond just me. And as I grew older, I tried to channel my PTSD, which ran deep, into PTG. Let me say that again. PTG, post-traumatic growth. It's a theory that speaks to the growth and the transformation that you can experience after enduring a trauma. And God, I wanted that so badly. I had to have that. And so that's what I dedicated myself to studying trauma intensely, and that's what I thought was my calling in life. So I became a type A entrepreneur, like most entrepreneurs. About 10 years ago, when I was only 21, I built a trauma therapy practice while I was still in college. I know, right? What a freaking overachiever. All my friends thought that. I moved into a single dorm, deleted all of my social media overnight, which is a death sentence in college. And my friends thought I was crazy to start my own business in college. Only it didn't work. People would ask me, what do you do? And I'd say I was a coach. They'd say, that's cute, for kids soccer? Yeah, that one was insulting every single time. On another day, maybe I would say I work with people to heal their trauma. And they'd go, oh, so where'd you get your doctorate? As if I even had a bachelor's degree yet. I certainly didn't share my why. And more importantly, I didn't share who I was behind my why. At that time in my life, I was taking massive action. Action I look back and I still honestly do not even believe I took it. But my presence, my demeanor, and especially my tone was so small. It was as if I didn't feel I had the right to tell people what I did in such a personal way, and nor did I have the words. So that's what I dedicated myself to that connection between psychology and communication, between your tone and your words, between your why and your who. And when I learned the power of nonverbal influence, specifically how to own my tone, my business went from 0 to 5 figures at the age of 22 in just a short few months with no website, no followers because I deleted all my social media, and absolutely nothing to show for myself. Because I learned that your tone, no matter how old you are, no matter how many years of corporate experience you have, plays a significant role in how people interpret you, how they perceive your value, and even more, how they identify you. But how do we identify ourselves, both in business and personally? We all get asked that dreaded freaking question when we're out networking, at social events, at weddings and bar mitzvahs, even on dates. And I know for a fact that all of you here are being asked that question today. What do you do? Don't you hate that? Is there anything worse? Just ask me where I'm from or where I went to college so we can move on from the small talk. Doesn't it always go something like this? So what do? I'm a consultant. Cool. In a tone that's anything but cool. What do you do? I'm in tech. Nice, nice, nice. In a tone that's anything but nice. And then we do proceed with the small talk, the worst kind of talk, until we finally find a way to change or exit the conversation, and honestly, even sometimes exit the building. It's so exhausting. Let's be honest. Isn't it that miserable for all of us? What if we hate that question? What do you do? Because we're answering it wrong. I am a financial advisor. I am an insurance agent. I am a business consultant. I am an entrepreneur. But that's just your title. Maybe your industry methodology or training. I am a this, I am a that. It's not your identity. It's not who you are. And you want to know the worst part? The part that really kills me is when you don't pour your heart into that answer, the way you pour your heart into what you do every single day. You walk away from that dialogue and you feel bad about yourself because you diminished it and somehow your answer was a barrier instead of building a connection with the other person. So in an attempt to fix this, experts, influencers, and motivational speakers have taught us to talk about our why. And that principle is groundbreaking. I do want to know your why so deeply. But if you only share your why, it still all sounds the same. Why do you do it? To protect people's wealth, to bring innovation to real estate, to inspire people to become their best selves, to empower people to live up to their potential. And that's beautiful. But how many times do we hear that? How many times do we say that? Even I've been guilty of it in the past. And if that's your true why, that's beautiful. What I want you to take away from this is that all of these words sound the same, because it's not only the words that matter. Your tone is what others hear behind your words, and that's what moves them to listen. You move people with who you are in business way more than why you are in business. So, to connect others with your why, start sharing the right who, the right way. Engage people with your personal identity, not your corporate identity. And I want to show you how to finally do that. It's something I call the 3 Ps of your personal tone. What pains you so deeply for others? What problem must you solve? And what passion drives you in your heart to solve it? Notice how all these 3 Ps are emotional words, right? Pain, problem, passion. When crafting our message, we focus too much on the pain points of our customers as a strategy. So what's your pain point? Let me ask you a few questions. What breaks your heart? What makes you so sad that you see happening out there? What pisses you off? What are you no longer willing to tolerate for others in your industry and maybe even in the world? And what does that tell you about the problem that you have to solve? Just like nervousness is on the same spectrum as excitement, you tell your mom you're going to do a TED Talk and you're literally so nervous you can't sleep, and she goes, no, honey, you're just excited. Most people don't realize that anger, your anger, is on the same spectrum as passion. They have similar characteristics, and it's meant to be acted on, not acted out. It's meant to be used, it's your fuel. And when you share that tone, that's what makes your pitch personal. And you know that that's what your team, your customers, your people, that's what they connect with anyway. So now when you're asked, what do? Instead of saying I'm a life coach, say, it breaks my heart when I see people suffering from trauma 20 years after the fact, so I've built a practice that can help them heal in months. Instead of saying, I'm in tech, say, well, it drives me crazy when I hear that new mothers can't get new jobs. So I've created a platform to help them re-enter the workforce. Instead of saying, I'm a financial advisor, say, well, it pisses me off when I hear that people lose 30% of their portfolio overnight. So I've built a firm that educates investors about risk. Now that's a conversation starter, right? Instead of just an elevator pitch. The definition of pitch, by the way, in the auditory sense, is the quality of a tone or sound. Isn't it funny how we lose the meaning of words? It's your tone! You gotta ditch the pitch for the tone, because it's the pitch of your pitch that tunes people into your message instead of tuning you out. So now when you're asked, what do? Answer with what moves you. That is what has the power to move others. They will be moved to do business with you. They will be moved by your mission and share in your vision for the future. They will be moved by your message, your tone more than your words, and your who more than your what or your why. I promise you all, here's what will happen. You will find people who buy into your dream. Dr. King found that person in Mahalia Jackson. She was a dear friend of his and a famous gospel singer who happened to be sitting near him in the crowd that day. And about 12 minutes into his speech, right when the scripted version was about to end, can you imagine if it ended? She was inspired to yell up, "Tell him about the dream, Martin! Tell him about the dream!" I still get goosebumps when I hear that. Up until that point, Dr. King's words, they were powerful and they were thoughtful and they were certainly meaningful. I mean, he was Dr. King. But when he shared his dreams for the future, his vision of what had to be, when he put aside his prepared speech, his words emerged from a deeper place. And they took on a more personal tone because his pain around a problem that was felt by all but was so deeply personal to him turned into a passion that only he was able to convey in that masterful way of his. I personally believe that that's what fueled his message into an unstoppable movement. If we're honest, we all need reminders of who we are, the who behind our why, so that the tone behind our words can have an impact. That's who Mahalia Jackson was for Dr. King. She reminded him of his dream. So let me ask you, what's your dream in business? What's the change you want to be in the world? When someone asks you, what do? Please don't give them your pitch. I want you to be heard. Tell them what pains you, specifically what pisses you off. Tell them about what problem you can't not solve because it means so freaking much to you. Tell them about the passion that drives you in your heart to solve it. And in the process, get personal. Answer what you do with what moves you. Don't just tell them your why. Let them into your heart. Let them into who you are. Thank you for having me.